Hello, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Somerville's Urban Forestry Committee here on Thursday, May 19th at about 4:30 p.m. Pursuant to various acts, but in particular Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, we are holding this meeting remotely, and we will publish minutes and video and audio recording on the city's website as soon as is practical. We have a special attendee this evening. Mayor Valentine is with us, and so I would like, our first item is introductions and housekeeping, and I would like to open the floor to the mayor to take us, to lead us in here. Welcome.
Sure. So thank you. It's nice to see everybody. I have been trying to make a habit of visiting the various commissions and committees. The first 4 months have been very busy, so I've been a little bit slower than I thought. So what I just wanted to do was take 2 minutes to, thank the committee. You're doing, amazing work. I appreciate, everything behind the Adopt the Tea program. And in 2021, with the 5th graders around the city, they got to create arbor posters, which was great. And I also know that you're working to educate our community about the older and the mature trees and the environmental benefits that these trees have. And I'm sure there's so much more that you do. You review the projects and the development projects. So thank you for all of that. I just wanted to share back that my goal in office will be to transform our public spaces, to use and regenerate our ecosystem. And I really feel that we're at a pivotal moment to do that. And your expertise and your volunteering, is wonderful for our community. We need your creativity. In these, 4 square miles of Somerville, to find just a little bit of solace where we can is really important, whether it's in the small spaces, the public spaces, or within the development projects. So I really appreciate all your work. I think that, certainly the pandemic showed us how important open space, green space, trees are to our mental health. So you literally feed us, or the work that's being done is not only with food, but with, our souls and our mental health. And I really appreciate the work you've done in order to make set the stage for the future in making this, a greener and healthier space, and really need your help to make it more creative. So again, just thank you. Thank you for letting me pop in. And maybe as we move forward, if there's something more particular, I can spend more time, but I just didn't want any more time to pass without, stepping in and saying thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Do you have a moment, if anybody has a quick thought for the mayor? It's a rare opportunity.
Well, I have attended some of your meetings in the past when you were first organized. I just sort of sat in the back and, listened. So I learned. So,
back when we were still trying to figure out what is an urban forestry committee and what does it do?
Right.
I didn't realize you were coming, so I didn't have anything particular prepared, but that what you said, I just appreciate your recognition of the importance of green spaces and that they serve people and ecosystems. So that was great to hear. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just can't thank you all enough, really. So I hope you have a very productive evening, and you probably have a very exciting agenda. So please, again, thank you. And, I'm happy to come another time, but I just didn't want too much time to pass because I had been asked to come to the committee or, trying to make my rounds early on. So
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let us proceed then with the usual order of business. That was exciting. With introductions, we'll go first through the committee members who are here and then through attendees who are in the audience. I'll just run down quick. We've got a fairly light attendance this evening from committee members. I'm Chris Dwan. I'm the co-chair, one of the two co-chairs of the committee. I am a local activist, really passionate about transparency and accountability, particularly making sure that we put value and put value on our trees and our open spaces in a way that's correct and complete. So Amy Myrtle, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hello. Yeah, I'm Amy. I am an urban ecologist. I specialize in kind of insects and understanding how they use urban spaces as kind of the base of the food chain to support other creatures. And I'm also really interested in public health and the role that trees can play in public health and stress and reducing air pollution and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Breck Miller.
Hi, everybody. My name is Breck Miller. I'm the city tree warden. Generally speaking, I'm responsible for tree maintenance and risk management, especially with our street trees, among other things.
Right. I already introduced myself. Jennifer Clifford.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer, a resident of Somerville and serve on the Urban Forestry Committee. I'm a scientist that's trained in plant pathology. I'm interested in plant health, and I love trees and want to be able to do what I can to help Somerville to grow a healthy canopy. And I'm also really interested in getting the community engaged so that we can all work on this together. Thank you.
All right, we have a note in the chat that Crystal Huff is asking us to specify our pronouns. So I am a he, him person. Continuing on, Malik Drayton, I see that you are actually, I apologize, Leah Grossman, you're next alphabetically here.
Hi, my name is Leah Grossman. I prefer she, her pronouns. I'm a landscape architect in Boston. I work in Boston and live in Somerville. And I'm excited to get our residents and neighbors excited about taking care of our trees and just getting interested in our trees. And I've been having a blast going out and tagging trees for Adopt a Tree and learning about new insects. So that's what I'm excited about this week.
Excellent. And then Malik Drayton.
Hello, I'm Malik Drayton, urban forestry and landscape planner. I have a background in natural resources, forestry, and ecology. And as you guys remember, I'm no longer a committee member, just here out of general interest and support, and to report on the tree preservation ordinance information. Thank you.
Excellent. And then Murphy Langevin.
Hi, I'm Murphy Langevin. I am the youth member on the Urban Forestry Committee. I go by she, her. I'm an arboriculture student at Essex Tech, a lifetime resident of Somerville, and I am just really interested in helping getting young people involved and helping improve the health of our urban forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bukili.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Bukili, Senior Urban Forestry and Landscape Planner. I use she, her pronouns. I am interested in all things related to the trees in general and the trees of our city in specific. And right now, planting is my main jam, although there's lots of other things that are also taking up lots of important time.
Excellent. And then last but never least, Tori Antonino.
Hi guys, my name is Tori Antonino, she, they, her, them. I am an ecological landscaper and I use use landscaping to plant indigenous species and regenerate the ecosystem. That's sort of my main focus. I'm a climate advocate and just really want to support all the creatures. And we can do that really, really well by just simply changing our landscaping habits. So, and I'm also the co-chair. Thanks.
Excellent. And then it is our custom here, checking to see if anybody else. Jennifer Clifford, you are muted.
Connor is on the phone. I just wanted to, although now I don't see him anymore.
I
That's
can,
right.
Oh,
I can introduce myself real quick. Hi everyone, Connor Guidarelli, certified horticulturalist and arborist. I'm a member of the committee and I'm here because I want to make Somerville greener and get the community more involved and help with the urban forest and canopy. So thanks, Egan. Thanks.
It's a mystery to me. We don't see you on the attendee list, but we can hear you. So we'll just chalk that up to the wonder that is GoToWebinar. Another wonder of GoToWebinar is that it separates out, it makes a strong distinction between panelists and attendees. We're not a fan of that distinction here. So we're going to as I say your name, I'll promote you to panelist. If you wish to be heard and seen, you are absolutely welcome to. And if you would rather remain quiet and anonymous, you are also welcome to do that. So I will start with Crystal Huff. It says that you are not connected to audio, so I cannot promote you to panelist, and I suspect that means that we won't be able to hear you. I'm sorry about that. That at least is what I say. Though the fact that I can hear Connor means maybe we would hear you if you spoke. I'm not sure. All right. If that status changes, I will come back to you. We have Dorothy Suput, I believe. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm going to make you a panelist and unmute you. And if you would like to introduce yourself, you are absolutely welcome.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Hi everybody. My name's Dorothy Suput. I'm a citizen of Somerville. I've lived here for, I don't know, 30 years or so. And I work outside Somerville in rural areas in New England, in New York, Hudson Valley, and sustainable agriculture. But I have always have loved trees and particularly interested in their not only a healthy ecosystem, but also a healthy and abundant canopy in Somerville. So I noticed somehow that we have an urban forestry committee. So I wanted to know what you guys are up to.
Thank you for joining us. It's always great to have members of the community here. And Crystal says that they're called in. So I have no visibility on that, but can you say hello? Sadly, we are reduced to communicating only through questions. We will keep trying on that. Yes, the question is humped and the answer is indeed. All right, so we always start, do we have housekeeping? So we have, I believe, Leah, you're taking notes, is that accurate? All right, is there any other housekeeping?
I have one.
Okay.
There was the open meeting law presentation by our legal team, and if you all were not able to attend for any reason, this applies to committee members specifically, make sure that you watch the video and submit that affidavit or whatever it was called to whoever it said in the email.
I have just a quick question on that. I came, but I was about 20 minutes late because I had a class, so I wasn't sure if I was counted or not. Should I just send the affidavit just in case?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure exactly, but
All right, I will.
better safe than sorry.
All right. Crystal, I just saw you appear and I unmuted you. Can you speak? Microphone turned green. We'll keep trying. I understand how frustrating that is, and I'm sorry. So now we move to item 2 on the agenda. Actually, as a question, would it be useful for me to screen share the agenda rather than just having our faces up? I got one nod, so I'll change presenter, make me the presenter, and share. All right, you should be seeing our agenda. Cool. So we're now on to resident concerns. So I'll open it up to our residents, our guests first, and then anybody on the committee. But any resident concerns that folks would like to share? Yes, Renee Scott.
Hi, thanks, Chris. Nice to see you all. I have a concern regarding Stone Place Park, which was the first park to be redone post native planting ordinance. And I was walking through there, it was yesterday or the day before, very recently. And I have a couple concerns. It looks very highly mulched. And it also looks as though, I wouldn't swear to this, but it looks as though, I know that the vast majority of the 75% native plants that were going in to meet the requirement were small species, and it looks to me like they have not survived. All I see is mulch where I think they should be. So I'm really hoping that we can make this an awesome success and show that the native planting ordinance can work. And so I just wanted to check in and see if someone could take a look and just check that park and make sure that things are going okay. And then separately, and I probably, we don't have time for this, it probably should be a future agenda item, but I know I've come to you guys before with the idea, I was calling a dog pee station, and I know it's, thanks, very nice, Renee, but I've actually done a lot more research into it and designed it through a green infrastructure course I took. So I think it's, in very brief, it's a mini bioreactor using wood chips to turn the nitrogen from the urine, dog urine, into harmless nitrogen gas. And I would love to talk to you guys about it. If you're interested, I think it would be a really good way to take some of the dog pee that is just decimating our parks and street trees and do something with it, and not something with it, but make it not so harmful. So anyway, that's that, and thank you for having me.
We will definitely put that on a future agenda. We had a whole bunch of stuff on this month's, but yes, absolutely, especially since you forwarded the designs. All right, other resident concerns. What are we hearing? What are people talking about? All right, possibly that's just light today, which would be okay. Yes, Jennifer.
If it's okay to take any from the committee, I have a couple from people that I ran into while I was tagging some trees. The first is Eversource has planted a couple of service berries on Highland Road, and the person adopting those trees was curious as to what cultivar they were. It doesn't say on the sheet, it just says, it just has the genus name, which I have trouble pronouncing. Amelanchier.
Amelanchier.
Thank you. And I was wondering, Vanessa, if you know offhand which cultivar they are. She thought that was going to be important information. And if you do, I can relay that information. And if not, I'll relay that as well. But
she emailed me as well.
Okay.
I don't know, since Eversource did it, I'm not sure what they got. I can reach out to them and ask. She also was asking about gator bags, and we put some out for her, I think.
Yeah, and that's on the tree health form for that tree. Okay. Second is there was a tree stake destroyed at 28 Leonard Street. I guess it was hit by a car. You know about this also. Okay. This was just also someone asking if that could please be taken care of, and I promised I would bring it up. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
All right, I actually had one as well. I think that everybody knows this, but I got a question. Is it intentional to put the gator bag on the tree stake rather than on the tree trunk? Somebody thought that that was maybe a mistake, and I was able to say, well, no, that's actually preferred because the gator bag can trap moisture and encourage mold if it's on the trunk. We only do that if you cannot have a tree stake like we have with the metal grates on Beacon. I'm going to try to unmute Crystal one more time.
Testing. 1, 2.
Yes.
Yay! Sorry, folks.
Every time is the charm.
It turns out that when you try to call to the go-to meeting, you might actually want to disconnect the phone call when you're trying to change your audio back to the Wi-Fi. Sorry about that. Okay, I did have a resident question, which is that a few years ago now, a tree came down onto a friend's car, and so I happened to know the approximate address. And that tree was removed because it was very sick, and like that was like it came down. That was the end of it, and it was paved over. But after recent discussions on the committee, I was thinking, oh, like I could request that that tree be replaced with another tree by now because it's been like 5 years, something like that. So I called 311 and requested, and they said they would put in the system, and they had no idea how long it might take or what happens next. And so I wanted to ask the committee for clarification. I'm really sorry about the loud road noise too. Did all that get through?
Yes.
Awesome.
Crystal, that the 311s that come to me, and the goal is to assess the site for planting, and if it's possible to plant a tree there, get it done within a year from the time that it's requested. I tend to go through those 311s in like bulk times right around when I'm preparing for planting. So if you put it in recently and you haven't heard from me, that's because I already have a fall plate for this spring, but I'll look into it for fall planting.
Fantabulous, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tori Antonino, you are muted, my friend.
Okay, I ran into Wig Seymour, and he wanted to know about the trees behind, on Medford Street behind the Faulkner building. I don't know if they're street trees, but it's like the early numbers in Medford, and he said they're all kind of dead. And I'm looking on Google Maps, and it looks like I do not know who they belong to, so but they're dead. So maybe we can figure out who owns them, and if they're ours, we can maybe take some down and put new ones in, or if they belong to the Faulkner Towers. I don't know, maybe we can ask them to plant some, or anyway, that was the directive from WIG, bringing that to our
Just to clarify, Tori, what building was it behind?
Faulkner Towers on which is on, I think it fronts on Highland, but it's all the back side of it is Medford. So it's kind of like, where Highland and Medford intersect. There are Faulkner Towers, and and I don't have a number. No, I do have a number. 289, 295 Medford Street. I thought it was the early numbers in Medford, but I forget that Medford also crosses Washington and continues. So yeah, 289, 295.
I've definitely seen those. There's no sidewalk on that side of the street, so I'm pretty sure those are private trees.
Do we have any ability to, I mean, is it even appropriate, and do we have any ability to reach out to a property owner and say, hey, your trees are dead?
Breck, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's actually something that we've been working on more from the perspective of your trees are a hazard to public safety. So there are a couple of trees that I've come across recently where you've got dead limbs over the sidewalk or something like that that represent, genuine hazards to pedestrians or property. So I think we could potentially think about issuing something like that here. It looks, just from a quick search, looks they're large enough to be hazardous. I would have to check it out and see, but that's certainly something we could think about.
All right, that sounds like a good start. I had one additional one just to mention, and I think this is probably better served by a direct email to the PSUF staff, but I'll mention it here. We have the bump out planters on Beacon, which all of the original plantings have basically been destroyed by people driving over them. Cars cut the corners tight. And I have a couple of neighbors who are interested in putting in a couple of bucks worth of hostas and similar. If we could get a commitment to, I'm sorry, Tori, what I meant was something of your selection, of course. But my poorly informed neighbors suggested what they see at Home Depot. Anyway, they were interested in a volunteer beautification effort in that space. And the commitment we would be interested in is that it wouldn't be string trimmed, so that we put up some sort of little indicator that we were taking care of it. And if at all possible, we would love to put a large rock in one of those bump outs to make it more costly for vehicles to just drive over the planters. I'm wondering if that's a thing we could entertain anywhere.
I know we've thought about like bollards, which is basically like a big rock, a fancy big rock for certain areas. So I think that's something that is possible to entertain. Definitely outside my wheelhouse, so I can't say definitively. Sending an email to PSUF folks would be a good start. It sounds like this would be sort of one of those places where folks would adopt a small area. So if we can go through the protocol we've discussed before of having PSUF sign off and then DPW sign off and then have signage with it, just sounds like what you were thinking about as well. I think that's a very good candidate because those planters need some love.
Yep. All right. Go ahead, Tori. You are muted again.
You think I'd have the hang of it by now, but whatever, happen a day. So are those planters no longer under contract or warranty?
No.
Oh, okay. I mean, that is good information to have, because then maybe being adopted out could be a good thing. Would we be able to get any monies to replant these tree wells? Because people are gonna put in what they have, which are things they know and they see, and which are not necessarily our native plants. Could we make an investment to make these planters more robust?
Could I suggest that we talk about that when we talk about the Street Tree Stabilization Fund? Because that is exactly the question that led me to put it on the agenda.
All right, sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right, if it's okay, so given that we're half an hour, go ahead.
Sorry, another quick tree question. A friend has a public tree that is over their electrical wires and like encroaching upon the electrical wires in the house. And I just want to make sure that like the same process is to like call 311 and hopefully somebody can come out and trim it safely.
Yeah, we do utility stuff sort of to a limited extent. I mean, Eversource really is responsible for the primaries. If there is something that is genuinely interfering or causing a potential hazard to the power lines, then it's something that we'll think about doing. But we're sort of trying to stay away from doing really extensive utility stuff unless it's absolutely necessary, but on a case-by-case basis, it's something we'll look at.
But what I'm hearing is that it's also an option to call Eversource and have them deal with it, which I did not realize, and so I did not advise my friend, but I can do that.
I would love it if it went to Eversource before it went to me. I'm not sure, you know, I kind of don't think that Eversource, unless it's, again, something that is posing an immediate issue, I don't think they'll come out and trim on call necessarily, but I also haven't really been around long enough to know exactly what the dynamic is there. So I would say for anything that is a power line issue, go to Eversource first, but we will certainly take a look if the 311 is submitted and see what we can do.
Fabulous,
Yeah.
thanks.
I will comment that my experience has been that Eversource responds to things as though they are safety concerns, and they're very vigorous in what they remove to absolutely remove everything that might be a safety concern up to and including the entire tree. And so if it is a small thing, I usually hesitate to reach out to Eversource first. So that might be if what it needs is a gentle pruning and maintenance to encourage growth in a safe direction, Eversource isn't really in that business. They're in the business of making space to clear around the wires. So it's kind of a judgment call. Whether you want to remove the danger, yes, always to removing the danger. But if they're expecting a maintenance trim that keeps the tree in a recognizable tree shape, that's not usually what I've seen Eversource do. Sorry to not have a better answer on that. All right. Let us move then to facts around the UFC working groups and open meeting law. So Tori, you've been in conversation about this with Vanessa. I'm not sure how you want to run it.
I put that one on the agenda, so I'm happy to read it.
Cool.
So basically we're trying to figure out if our subcommittees and working groups need to comply with open meeting law or not. So right now, we need to provide David Shapiro from the legal office information so that he can determine whether or not our working groups are subject to open meeting law. So he had a few questions that I thought we could just answer as a group. It's possible that our different working groups work differently too, so it would be good to get everyone's opinion on this. So he had two main sort of broad questions. I'm going to start with the second question first because it's easier. So first is how specifically the membership of our working groups is established. Do we specify it in committee? Do we include public members? Or yes, let's just write down how we actually do it. So how do we do it?
I'll take a cut and people tell me if I missed anything. I think every time we've had a working group, we've said, well, we need to keep it below quorum, and who's willing to do some work? And then people raise their hands. And then sometimes we do have other interested members of the public who join in and do work with that sub-quorum group. And then they come back. Sometimes the people who volunteered are captured in the minutes and sometimes not, but it's a very informal process and there's no standing membership of a working group. It's all volunteer. And to my recollection, we've never even voted on starting one of these. It's just been conversational about who was willing to put in some hours before the next meeting. Does anybody have more than that? Okay, Amy says that sounds correct.
Well, I was just, so I'm just going to give the specific example of species selection and planting protocol, also known as SAP. So for example, one of the projects we've been working on recently is this smaller diameter street tree pilot program. And so we're, coming up with designs and plans to do these for tree pits, or maybe it's 6. And so we're like picking out, we're designing them. What are they going to look like? How are they protected? What's the soil medium going to be? What is, we're doing vegetative mulch, so there's plantings that are going over them. So it's like, I don't know if this is, I mean, it's there's a sort of a design process going on, and of course decisions are being made on plant material, and I mean, it's in the public realm. Like I kind of was like, well, is that something we need to start in, having as, following the open meeting law, because we're kind of informing on design or informing on like a public realm? I have no idea, but I mean, I do know that it would, I want to do what's right. I want to do what's right by the open meeting law. And I don't want to impede, hamstring our group, who I feel we've been so productive in doing so many things, like in our subcommittees. So yeah, if we're making decisions on how the public realm might look, that's a question I have for David. Like, does that change things? Again, we're not making any motions. We're not saying, there's no votes, or at least no votes that I have participated in. And then we come back to the group and we get like, here's what we got. What do you guys think? And that's where, if there were to be any motions or final decisions made, it's made in the committee of a whole. So
I see Leah putting up a hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Tori, you're totally right. I think the clear sort of legal distinction is that we're making selections and then presenting those to the rest of the committee in an open meeting where, anyone can give feedback. And it's not something that we didn't vote as a committee to approve our tree pits. So I think that's where the distinction is. So I think for all of our subcommittees, like, we're almost like research groups. We're not making motions. We're not voting on anything. We're simply like either gathering evidence or preparing events, and then bringing that all back to a public forum where anyone could, I guess we don't really have veto power, but they could veto it or they can vote for it. And it's I think any like things that are officially a decision are happening in an open meeting, but that's my optimistic view of things.
I would say that that's been sorry.
And sorry, just to add on that, from a designer's perspective, like, as a designer who would present to the city, we're doing tons of design in the background, and then you present to the city and the city approves it. So I think in this way, I don't know if we're different because we're on the committee, but I don't know, if we think about it in the same process, like, the whole public isn't invited to every design firm because that would be insane. So like, we're doing the research and the work and then presenting it in an open forum. And I think the fact that anyone is invited to join our subcommittee meetings is, reflective of that. We're trying to make it open and staying under quorum. So, yeah.
And I feel like the SAP group is one of the more active subcommittees. Do you ever like think of projects outside of what we originally talked about in the committee? Or is it always like working towards a goal that we've discussed as a committee of the whole?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think if if there's been like a flurry of a brainstorm that's like, wow, we could. I don't know. I mean, we have good conversations.
I think it's always guided by what is happening in the committee.
Yeah, I'd say we stick to the.
And I guess I don't know what the distinction of like we are just residents having a conversation. I guess that's the fuzzy part of like when you're doing committee work versus not.
Yeah, if I could, my understanding of the law is to, provide transparency around the exercise of civic power. This committee, by design, does not have any judicial power, and it does not have any financial power. We advise them, and we are, in fact, we have been cautioned multiple times as individuals to avoid any appearance of speaking for the committee in a case where no vote was taken in committee. Right, so that's all clear. We can't spend money. We can't make decisions that affect property or people's lives. And unless I've got a vote in the minutes, I can't even say, hey, on behalf of the Urban Forestry Committee, even to say thank you for something. So under those conditions, to get even more strict about working groups just seems like friction to me. Like I literally can't imagine a thing that would happen in a working group that would rise to anybody's attention for like that would be harmful, that it was not done in a formal open meeting context, right? And to Vanessa's question, that on the like having a brainstorm that takes you out of the realm of the working group, I think that those have showed up in the past as a, hey, we were talking in this subquorum thing, can we put something new on the agenda? It has always circled back to a posted agenda item that, we had an idea, can we talk about it? So I'm actually very comfortable with the way we've been running in the past, but it is, of course, the solicitor's call on how to advise us. There was a second question.
There is. I think we kind of answered it already, but it says specifically what the full committee has done or wants to do in connection with the creation or assigned duties of the working group. So, for example, vote in a full committee to set up a working group to produce a report to the committee versus no discussion at all in the full committee and unilateral reports submitted by a group of individuals, which happens to include committee members to the full committee. So I'm pretty sure we always bring a report back to the committee for discussion. There's discussion in the UFC open meeting, and if we want to support it at that point, then we do it as a group. Does that
That's
sound
been my
right to
take.
everyone?
I would certainly, turning it upside down, I would certainly think it was pretty weird if we started a working group and then I heard or read someplace that that group had just gone off and done something without coming back to committee for confirmation. That would seem inappropriate to me. I would always expect to funnel it back through here. And if we wanted to set up a subcommittee that had the power to go off and act independently, I think that meetings of that subcommittee ought to be open and advertised and accessible. But that's not what we've done in the past. Yes, Jennifer Clifford.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing. I think one of the key words here for me is something I don't think I've heard yet, but it's the word organizational. That I think everything we do in a working group is to organize certain activities that we've agreed upon to do, that we've gotten volunteers to contribute to, and we take this organized material and bring it back to the committee and present it either, for further discussion, for vote. And I think that's the key here, is that without that, we would not be able to progress with some of the things that we do. And I'm thinking in large part about the outreach because that's what I'm more involved with than anything else. But without that, we wouldn't be able to do outreach. So I think the key for me is being able to organize things in between meetings and then discuss that organization at the meetings. Does that make sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be clear, I think, I mean, whatever we end up hearing back from the law department, it doesn't mean we can't have these groups. Like worst case scenario, we just have to advertise the meetings of these working groups in open meeting law so that other people can attend. That makes it a little bit more cumbersome in terms of planning in advance and having an agenda and having to hold these meetings potentially virtually or allow people into whatever space that you're holding the meeting. So it doesn't mean, you know, we can't continue it in whatever fashion, just there may be a few more steps to have the meetings.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that, we operate as, I hope, among the most open and friendly of the committees. That's one of my goals. And we are not actually, being a committee of the city does not actually obligate us to include every person in every conversation. Right? You look at the way that the committees of the city council work, and the conversation is very constrained, right? So I think that it's totally appropriate to be able to work and brainstorm and bring stuff back. And yeah, if I'll be interested to see where it goes, but I'm very comfortable with how we've been working.
So,
all right, go ahead, Troy, sorry.
Just a couple quick, I think, so say we did, in some group, there was some, we decided we needed to have it as an open meeting. Would we need to have you, Vanessa, or Breck, or Malik as present? Like, could we do it without you guys? Like, that's my concern, is that you guys are really hard worked and that this would be like more. And so would you guys be obliged to attend if there were an occasion where we needed to have follow the open meeting law for a subcommittee?
Great question, and one I hadn't thought of. I had figured I would have to post the meeting, you know, the meeting information, but I hadn't really thought that one of us would have to attend. I'm not sure what the answer is there.
And
I want to respond.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to respond to Dorothy's question in the chat here. Dorothy asks why we have to consider this when the committee has such little power. I would say my impression is that the administration wants to be sure that we all understand open meeting law and that we're all operating according to a shared understanding of how these things work. Like, we want to do it right, and so Vanessa, as our I'm not sure of the right title, our ex officio member, brought this forward so we could talk through it and understand exactly what we were doing. But this was a request from the administration to really make sure that we all understood and were playing from the same songbook.
And I'd also add, we don't have any, you know, official power. You know, we don't have money or regulatory authority, but we are making a name for ourselves, I'd say. So we are able to influence certain decisions in some instances. So we have sort of background power or something. There's got to be some cool term for it, but
yeah, we represent the city, and so we should be sure that we do it right. Right.
And
anything else on that? Sorry, Tori, I feel like you had another.
So, yeah, final thing I think is there was something that David said that kind of clicked, and it had to do with like the public realm, and I don't remember what he said, but it was something along the lines of like decisions being made for changes in the public realm. That's not an exact quote. So I was thinking, like, imagining like there is quite a possibility that we're going to form a puppy post subcommittee, and And it's like, is that a change to our rights of ways that's going to need to be made public? I mean, it's kind of like the tree pit in a way, a different style of planting. So if you can kind of mention that, and Tori has a vague memory of making changes to the public realm that would need to be under open meeting law. So that was my final question. Thanks.
Yes, Jennifer Clifford.
I'm curious. I think this conversation is kind of this agenda item is kind of coming to a close, but I am curious what then are the next steps. I mean, Vanessa, we discussed these questions that they had, and now what?
Good question. So I will report these facts back to David Shapiro, and he will then try to figure out what we need to do. So by the next meeting, I should have an answer or more questions.
Okay, thank you.
And somewhat ironically, that conversation is not bound by open meeting law. But we all do our best. All right. I think that we should move on to Arbor Day planning.
I'll take that one too. I haven't done much planning yet, but Jennifer's been doing a lot in the background of gathering information, and we've talked about it a bit, about kind of replicating what we've done last year. I would like to send out a poll to see who all will be available. We discussed doing a Thursday 5 to 7 timeline event. I'm still pretty happy with Nathan Tufts Park as the location. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to get trees planted there, so that's been part of the reason I haven't sent out any information yet, because I don't have any information. So I'm probably more like mid-June is going to be a better bet, but I'll send out a poll probably tomorrow to see which UFC folks can help out different days. And I think we'll just have all our brochures, and if we can do as much as we've done in the past with like the cool seed bombs, that's a big thing, and the other activities, the drawing leaves, and hand out those, what are the little like leaf finding images, like I forget, Jennifer, you can tell more about that, but you know, same sort of stuff, keep it pretty simple. And that's about all I have. Anything to add, Jennifer?
No, not really. I think a lot of these outreach materials are things that we brought out at the last Arbor Day celebration, but also some things that we did for our summer streets outreach events and education events as well. So lots of informational flyers, activities for the children. Yeah, so I think you covered it, Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you for helping.
Could you remind me when Arbor Day is this year?
Whenever we want it to be. That's sort of what the poll will be about. State and National Arbor Day already passed. That was in late April. So Somerville, I've tended to change it every year. We don't have a standing day. The goal this year is to do it on it, like last year, do it on a day when the tree crew contractor people can plant a tree, and then we can do the mulching and that sort of stuff. So that's what I need to make sure, that we can make sure trees get planted that day.
I think that seems totally appropriate. And
yeah,
Crystal,
sorry, I was just going to add, it's a little nicer at that time of year because trees are leafed out. Perhaps some are still in flower, although a lot of the flowers are going by. And it's way more engaging, you know, when you actually see an active tree rather than doing it at the end of April, which would be the traditional time. seems to make sense to postpone it. Thank you.
If there are locusts at Nathan Tufts, they should be in full olfactory form. They're some of such delicious flowers.
Crystal asks in the questions whether the tree adoption certificates could be highlighted at Arbor Day.
Sure, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. I think that there will be plenty of adopt-a-tree materials and information to share, and that should definitely be part of it. Yes.
All right. Is that what we've got for Arbor Day? Cool. Item 5 can be really fast. I was going to have my act together. We have this park on Somerville Avenue at 217 that the city took by eminent domain back in 2019. And then there was a pandemic and we all got really busy, and it's still just a gravel lot. And I was going to suggest that that would be an amazing place to pilot a Miyawaki microforest. I was going to have a little write-up suggesting why that was a good idea, and I didn't get to it, so I don't have anything for the committee to approve, but so I'll bring that for the next meeting. Go ahead, Tori, sorry.
Yeah, I have some information about that. I think, yeah, that was the one that was the American Legion post, or?
I'm not sure what it was. It's the one that the traditional lawsuit has just gotten underway. Every time the city takes property by eminent domain, the owner sues and says, I should have gotten more money, and then it takes a couple of years to settle up.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure, yeah. So myself and, well, Green and Open, myself and Lee and Renee Scott have had conversations with George Proakis regarding that site. We've been having chats with him about where we can do a Miyawaki forest, and that site has come up. And I know Groundwork is also investigating that, is looking at that site, so we're hoping for some sort of a merger. Chris, if you want to attend one of our next meetings, there's been a whole Miyawaki forest crew that's been working on finding locations, and that has come up as one of them. I mean, I support a memo.
Okay. Yeah, that is just to ask, is there any reason that we would not have a fairly generic statement of Miyawaki forests are a really, really good idea in dense urban environments, and that's one of the few places that we could put it, and it's currently empty? Signed, the Urban Forestry Committee. Go ahead, Vanessa.
I just wanted to make sure people were thinking about public space in general. So Miyawaki forests provide a lot of benefits for sort of accelerating ecosystem development, but they do require a lot of maintenance in the beginning, and they have to be blocked off. So that space would not be usable to the public if it was a Miyawaki forest, and it is on a very dense urban street with lots of development going on. So there are trade-offs to using that site as a Miyawaki forest. That's all it could be. It couldn't be a place to sit. It couldn't be a place to hang out. It couldn't be a place for any other activities. And just so that you guys are aware, usually our process in the past for designing public spaces is to have a public process. So lots of public meetings about what the best use of a site is, and that would include neighbors of the site itself. So, that doesn't mean that the Urban Forestry Committee couldn't have a statement saying that we would be in support of that, but there are trade-offs to having the site like that, and it, going whole hog for Miyawaki forest without any public process may not be the right way to go for the neighborhood.
Oh, I hope Yeah, it's good to have the conversation then, because I'm looking at a Google Street View of it, and this is back when the Union Square construction just parked there, and it's still kind of like that. I think it's of sufficient size that we would not block any other use. Like the proposal is absolutely not to do a space filling all the way to the sidewalk and then fence it off and not let humans in, right? I think the proposal is to start with the idea of an anchoring place of dense vegetation where trees could grow, and have that as a design element. And I would also never ever suggest that we fail to do public process, right? Like those are two, like, that neither of those is anywhere near the intention here. It's like we are so shy on canvas space as a city that we have to work with that I've been looking at that for 3 years, going, even a corner of it could be transformational. It'd be like one of the first ones in the region. But I would never suggest closing it off to the neighborhood, nor would I suggest just trying to unilaterally close off public process.
I didn't realize, it seemed like a pretty small space. What's like, does anyone know what a minimum Milwaukee Forest dimension is?
6 parking spots. 6 parking spots. That's kind of the minimum. And just to Chris's point, yeah, this is not up to preclude community process. This is the brainstorming the doors to, okay, what are the possibilities? And sort of I was, since groundwork has been looking at that site, I'm like, wow, we could do it's a south-facing site. We do a Milwaukee in the back that has like sort of, it's kind of circular. So there's seating and passive space, and then they're building, then there's, food is growing. So it's definitely not an either or. It's more of I would love to see these like Milwaukee forests kind of just popping up in different spaces where we can fit them in. And again, to what Chris said, absolutely, we are the kings and queens of community process here in Somerville. So that would always be part of it.
All right. Yeah, I would take you up on that invitation, Tori, to be in the conversation. Let's see if we can reduce it to a nice crisp page or so, and I'll bring it back next month. All right, that was what I wanted to say about 217 Somerville. Next up is the Street Tree Stabilization Fund. I put this on the agenda because I wanted to ask. I saw that we used $100 and some thousand of the Street Tree Stabilization Fund, which is the money that comes primarily in from the fees and fines under the Tree Protection Ordinance. We, give or take, we used that to pay for planting to supplement what was in the mayor's budget this year. And my question to Vanessa was twofold. One is, could you give us a preview of any other planned uses of that money? And the second was, we had a couple of ideas previously about educational opportunities and outreach opportunities that would be relatively small change next to 100 grand. And if there's any possibility of setting aside a little of the money for things like that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was muted. Let's see. So yes, I was able to get the $162,000+ for planting this spring. That does include money for the pilot program, so that's all set. I don't have any other planned uses at the moment. There's probably $40-ish thousand left right now, but we get more all the time. So nothing planned. It has to be used. I was trying to find the exact language right now, and I'm sorry I couldn't find it. But it has to be used for like planting or maintaining street trees is the basic rule. So like using it for educational materials, I think that would be a hard sell. If we can be convincing that it's for something that would benefit the street trees or trees in general, city trees, I think, you know, we might be able to swing that. I do like having some cash in the pocket in case I need it for planting. So that's usually what I'm trying to save it for. If I wasn't able to get it, I wouldn't have been able to do spring planting this year. So I'm glad we have that pot of money. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And sorry for putting you on the spot. Is that usage restriction from the tree preservation ordinance or somewhere else?
I think it probably originated from there, or when the older version of the tree ordinance is when the tree fund was established, at least to the best of my knowledge. I was able to modify the language a little bit. So the exact determination is a language associated with the fund. So it's something in the budget, like it's a type of fund, and it has to be, like, I can't spend the money directly without going to city council because it's a stabilization fund. I think it's, anyways, a certain kind of fund, and there's designated uses associated with that.
Okay, because I think it would be useful to at some point have this committee able to at least ask for, I could imagine educational materials. We had talked about local conferences, it being useful to be able to represent at them, which are, like I say, small change relative to a whole seasonal planting. So I don't think we would make too much of a dent there. And I'm wondering where we would start. Would it be asking the council to amend the ordinance, asking the council to amend the fund purpose, asking the administration to adjust it? Like, I just don't know where to push to enable that.
Well, I think it would start with the administration. I guess internally, I'd have to convince our finance director, but also I'm not sure that it's necessary. We do have $1,000 designated from PSUF funds every year for UFC things. So that's where we've been able to fund outreach materials in the past. So it's not a lot of money, but it's some, and I don't even know if we've expended all of our $1,000 in the past. And I was able to get not a firm confirmation, but it would probably be fine to pay for conference fees. So if there's a specific conference that people are interested in, then you can ask me about it and I can go up the chain from there.
Okay,
So
actually, that's really good. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we might be okay as is.
We tried this in the past though, and the conferences were turned down, that part of it. Do you think it's worth trying this again?
I think
budget from PSUF.
My recollection was that I said it's probably a no, but never came back with a firm answer because I never got a firm one. But when I actually had the discussion, I believe it was it might be fine was the final answer that I had.
Well, what would you need? What would you need in support to request that part of it? Should we go back into that little small line item budget that we came up with? I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago that we started that, or
I think
would that be helpful for you?
I think since the discussion was open before, we can kind of move the money. We have $1,000 now. That's kind of our set amount. So we can use it. We can try to use it in different ways than we have in the past. So if there's a specific conference, then I can check, we can ask how many people want to go, what the cost is, and I can try to get it paid for. Things through the city, as you probably know, move pretty slow. So we'd need to try to sign up months in advance to be able to pay for it by the time the registration closes. But I think I don't need you to do any more work, Jennifer. I know you've done a lot already. So So if there is a specific conference, why don't you just reach out to me and I will move it up the flagpole.
Okay, so that it can be done on an individual. I guess what we had talked about before was just trying to say, okay, we would like this amount each year so that we can send a couple people to the, ELA conference or something like that.
Yeah.
But it can be done on an individual basis, and I guess maybe, all right, so that answers my question, I think. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah, and just to say, I think that there is huge value to my experience suggests that the big step is from we've never done that to, well, sure, we did that in the past. I think there's huge value just to cracking the seal on that and sending a person to a conference. And if it should be two, so it's not favoritism, great, we'll send two, whatever. But I would love it if we took initiative and found a way to spend more than zero of that budgeted $1,000, because then we'll know that we can actually access that money. And yeah, thanks for the reminder.
We have used money for the route banner and for printing stuff for Adopt a Tree, and
cool. You were correct. So we're already past the zero. And then part of the magic of city budgeting is that because the formal council approval applies at the department level. So if there was something that was sufficiently compelling that the director of PSOF wanted to take money from some other line item, that's at the director's discretion. So the $1,000 is guidance rather than set in stone. All right, that was actually really informative for me at least. All right, let us move on. Sorry, go ahead, Tori.
Just on that item, could we use funds to help those who want to adopt these planter pits? They may not have trees in them. I'm not sure if they do, but I feel like the urban, in the spirit of the being part of the urban forestry, where it's not just trees that we're trying to support, it's the entire all the layers of the forest. So kind of similar to how we are offering plugs to those people who adopt trees. And can we put in can we get some for those who want to adopt these? They're not tree wells, or I mean, it's green infrastructure, right? Or they're raised planters in the street. I'm not sure, but could we use the funds for that?
You're talking about the ones on Beacon Street?
Correct. Yeah, the ones that are no longer under contract.
So we may be able to use money to buy plants for those. I'm not sure, but as you may be aware from the pilot program, it's like a 2-month process to get approval. And we need to know how much, like to the dollar, money we would need. So so I'm gonna go with maybe. I'm gonna look up the language if I can find it, what specifically the fund is for, but we do have some plants that are going to be planted with companion plants with the tree wells that we're going to use money for. So it's possible. I think it would be an easier sell if it was associated with the tree, but maybe.
Thanks.
Very cool. Are we good on money? All right, we have a request from Crystal to take the Adopt a Tree program out of order because of a time conflict. Any problems with that? All right, so let's talk about the Adopt a Tree program.
I can take that, and then I will let Crystal say their piece on the certificates. But I guess the first thing I'd like to say is we still have 2 areas of the city that remain untagged, and I'm calling on you all to please consider tagging trees in these areas. And One is Ward 6S and the other is Ward 7. Connor has the materials all ready to go. You just need to pick them up. Ward 6S has about, I'd say 30 trees or so that need to be tagged, and Ward 7 is a little bit more at about 40. But we really need volunteers to get these trees tagged. It would be great if we could have it done by the end of the month. And happy to send out a reminder with links to the instructions on how to get the tags and where the tree health form is, because we're asking tree taggers to please fill out a tree health form for each young tree that they tag. But please consider doing this. We'd really appreciate your help. So I checked the returns today and we've got 53 trees adopted so far. So thanks to all of you who got out there and tagged those trees. There have been a few questions coming in through the forms, and I've been kind of fielding those on an individual basis, kind of questions about watering or what if I move, you know, things like that that people are curious about. So that's so far been an easy kind of thing to tackle because there haven't really been that many questions. I think moving forward, Leah and Amy are going to coordinate on sending follow-up emails throughout the summer. So, you know, Althea had set up this MailChimp where we can push out emails to remind people to water if it's a really hot day, you know, get out there to remind people to water their trees. So they'll be taking care of that. And Amy, would you like to talk about the business flyer that you created, or?
Sure. Yeah, I made a little flyer that we could hand out to businesses, just explaining what the program is. And I think that what we were discussing over emails, whether or not we can add some sort of incentive for the business, whether it's we put a little sign in the tree well saying that they adopted it, or we recognize them on the website somehow, or we give them a little sign they can put up in the window of their business, you know, saying they're caring for a tree or something that would kind of give them a bit of recognition and make it more of an incentive for them to participate. So I think Vanessa was checking in with context from, I forget the group, but someone that would be approving of that kind of related idea.
I have not heard back yet, but I'm going to ping them again.
Thanks, Vanessa.
And also just a quick note, we haven't had a lot of people interested in the insect monitoring yet. It was only 4, I checked today, it was only 4 people have expressed interest in that. It's a little disappointing, but maybe in one of our early MailChimps, we could send a reminder to the folks who have signed up to see if maybe they just missed that little link in their welcome email. Because last year we had a lot more, so I don't know, people just aren't noticing it or they're just busier this year or whatever it is, but.
Yeah, it is sort of down at the end, so maybe not quite scrolling through the whole email. I think we're finding a little less engagement, you know, the Arbor Day poster, for example, and folks are busy and traveling this summer perhaps and feeling a little more freedom, not locked down in the pandemic. So I think that's a good idea, Amy, kind of put that back out there as an option. I like that idea.
And on that, I have to say that it wasn't something that I have thought about really. Total, giving myself away here. But once we started doing the spotted lanternfly, like, I don't know, I find myself like looking at the trees a lot more and seeing a lot of stuff, and it's really cool. So it'd be cool to share, you know, maybe to get people excited, sharing some photos, and I think just breaking the ice to actually like look, like you walk past a tree and you're like, that's a tree. And then you start looking at it, you're like, oh my God, there's thousands of insects on this tree. And it's really, it's really wild, kind of concerning in some cases, but pretty cool. So I'd say, yeah, I was probably someone who wouldn't have signed up, you know, before. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I want to look at all the insects on all the trees. So having a change of, I don't know, perspective or encouragement, but I think doing something when we have our Arbor Day event, that would be great to like break the ice down for some people and get, you know, probably get kids excited about it too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We could add like a photo of some interesting things that have been spotted or something in a MailChimp maybe.
Yeah, maybe especially in the context of the spotted lanternfly or even this calico scale that we've been seeing, could maybe pique some people's interest if we want to keep an eye out for invasive pests.
Yeah, and I saw another one the other day that I need to email you guys because I haven't figured out what it is. It was like tiny white
send
lines
pictures.
that were, yeah, like tiny white lines that were kind of fuzzy. They might be some sort of larvae, but I'm not sure. And it looked like only half the tree was leafing out, so it seems like it is definitely harming or delaying the tree's development. So
yeah, sounds like some sort of scale or something, maybe an adelgid or something that like they can form that kind of like fuzzy white woolly kind of covering.
Yep. Yeah, I'll send it along.
Thanks. I'd love to take a look. That's all I have for Adopt a Tree. If nobody else on the committee has anything, I'd like to turn it over to Crystal so that they can talk about the certificates.
Hello. I'm taking that silence as a yes. Okay. So I apologize that my previous discussion with the committee was discombobulated by having no audio. So to be clear, we have an adoption certificate available in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Nepali, Chinese, French, and Ukrainian. In particular, the Ukrainian is available because we know that we have at least one refugee family in the city, and I want them in particular to feel welcome and welcome to put down roots. And I think that this is a potential way of sending that signal. And I've also written a little like intro note to them and had it translated when I had the certificate translated. And they are in Ben's ward, and so he is going to pass that on to them. I think this might be the first document that the city will make available in all of those languages at once from the get-go. I'm pretty excited about that, and y'all should be as well. Part of why I felt so strongly about doing that is to like be the change I want to see in the world. I want to understand the process for people to be able to get an adoption certificate. I believe that they either follow a QR code or follow the link that Jennifer sent me to sign up to Adopt a Tree, and then they get an email that says, here is a link to the different PDFs that are fillable, and I need to send those along, but that part is easy. Is that correct?
So I think we need to fine tune this process. But I think that we talked last time about having, yes, some sort of put it into the email responder that we use through MailChimp to give the option of, or pointing them to link the folder with the PDFs in it so that they can download and fill out their own. Does that make sense to you, Crystal?
It does. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what the process is so that when I do a Twitter thread, it will be clear on there. So for those who aren't aware, the hashtag Somerville Trees is actually occasionally active on Twitter and has some tweets from last year of families being excited about adopting trees. So I'm going to use that for this as well. And thank you, Jennifer, for pointing me to it.
Sure.
And the only other thing I need is a date for releasing. I was hoping to have a date for Arbor Day to sort of also drive people to that, the way that like mentioning the insect survey in the certificate hopefully drives some people to participate in the insect survey. But if we don't know the Arbor Day date, that's legit. thoughts welcome.
If you can get the PDFs of the adoption certificates to me, I can put them into a folder on a Google Drive, and we can point folks to that once they adopt a tree. So the Adopt a Tree program is live because we've been tagging the trees. So as soon as you can do that, we'll set up the folder and the language in the emails to the adopters, adopting families. And then we will let you know once we get an Arbor Day date for sure.
Cool. And I can always add a tweet to the thread later on. That always works.
Okay.
Okay, then I think I have everything I need to know, and I owe y'all some things. And thank you for being willing to participate in my nonsense. I totally plan on having like an adoption ceremony with like, I don't know, grape juice or something. It'll be fun.
Good. Well, thank you, Crystal, for doing that. We really appreciate your contribution to this program. I think it's a wonderful addition.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it would be great if we could get those. I think the Google Drive is a great sort of first step for people who email, but it would be awesome to get it on the website as well. And I know that's kind of a process, but is that something we had talked about, having a splash page for Adopt a Tree, and that would be a great way to kick it off and direct people to it. So what's do we think we could set up by our looming month away from now, Arbor Day?
Thanks for bringing that up, Leah. Yes, we did want to have a unique landing page for the Adopt a Tree. Vanessa, is there any progress on that front? We have things to populate it, but I don't know if we actually have the tab yet.
No, I was gonna do it all in one go and haven't done it, but on my to-do list for tomorrow.
Okay. Well, let us know if you need anything else.
Okay.
But that would be a great place to have the link for the certificates too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either have a link to them or just have them. I don't know if they could live as a document on our site, and then you could just download it right from there. Because I think people might be, I don't know, I'd be more hesitant to download something from a random Google Drive than from the city website. So it might be a way of, just making that a little bit safer.
That would be better if we could store it on our website rather than, the UFC Google Drive. Yeah.
So if we need, Vanessa, do you think it'd be easier? Like, do you need all the content and you just send it to someone and say, here's all the content, can you upload it? Or is there a like, can we do this? Yes, we can. Then we send the stuff.
No, I can just send it.
Okay, great. So yeah, do we have everything else that we need that wants to go on there? And once we have the PDF, we can send it as a whole package of like, here's the new tab and here's all the stuff we want on it.
Yeah, that would work.
I guess the only thing we couldn't do, well, we'd still have, the forms obviously are still linked. So all we really need is the announcement, the description, the photos, and the certificates, right? Is that, okay.
Jennifer, I thought I was figuring the document you shared that will go out to like Resistat and stuff was also for the website.
Yes, yeah, that can be used for all of the things, all of the publicity. If you think that needs more detail or if anybody on the working group thinks that needs more detail for the website, we can flesh that out further. But it's pretty straightforward.
I think it's good to keep it simple to start with, and then we can add or edit at any time.
So that also reminds me, just as a reminder to the committee, that we will be advertising this through Resistat and the Sustainaville newsletter, and also sending it to city councilors to ask that they please include it in their newsletters, to try to get a little more eyes on the program. I appreciate everybody's hard work on this.
I do too. It's a great program. All right. So we are a little bit time constrained. So let's proceed in order, but let's be respectful of, actually, I think that I would prefer to, because I know the city staff prepare the lists for removals and everything, to take the city updates and then cut into our own other items. Any objections to that? Cool. So let us get city updates. Vanessa and Malik and Breck, it is your show.
Removals are first. Breck, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I sent a list out to everybody a couple hours ago with a few updates. We had a couple of sort of last minute additions to the removal list. Most of what I've sent out so far has been completed already. I think we've got 2 more from that list that are still pending, and then I'm hoping that we'll have another round of tree removals coming up soon, but it kind of depends on the budget situation. So stay tuned at future meetings.
Can we share the list on the screen? That's a fine idea. Let me see if I can figure that out. Maybe is the answer. I'm going to stop showing. And then I'm going to show, but not exactly the same thing. So you should be seeing an almost illegibly small list here. And what I see at a skim is decay, death, cracking trunk, dead over a bench. Yes, please remove that one.
Yeah, I should have clarified that from the beginning, but we are at this point just handling hazardous situations pretty much. So most of these trees are in advanced states of decay or dead or some combination of the two.
Yep. And there's my favorite. I've spoken about that one a couple of times. Thank you for the swift work there.
Yes.
All right. Any discussion, questions? All right, cleaning up the dead trees. So onward to planting, I think, comes next.
I'm happy to go next.
Still no.
Hoping. Yeah, well, I'm already talking. That's okay. So we haven't gotten any trees in the ground yet or any tree wells prepared yet, but hoping to start doing tree well preparations next week. There's been some delays from our contractors front. Still hoping to do our 175 trees this spring, but ideally by mid-June we would be done. So if it's getting too late in the season, we might have to have a bigger planting in the fall. So TBD on that. I should have more information, like the final list, by next meeting.
Is this that supply chain I've heard so much about?
I don't think so. There's been some, but you guys should be happy about this. The contractor had some trees sent for us to select from, and they were from an SLF area. So we said, no, none of those. No, thank you. So we are picking trees in the next few days instead.
I have never actually heard somebody call it XLF, but I knew immediately what you meant.
Oh, great. Yes. for those looking at home, spotted lanternfly, SLF. Sorry, jargon.
Yeah.
Um,
I got it immediately. I'm like, I recognize jargon, right?
yeah.
Do you,
Sorry, was there a question?
yeah, do we think, or do you think that uh, the perhaps the limited sourcing is going to affect our goals of planting the indigenous street trees? Like, do you think it might impact? Because I know the native planting ordinance. I know that street trees at this moment are not fully obliged to hit the 50% legally.
We are actually. We are.
We are.
Yeah, this contract was after.
It was.
It was all after the native species ordinance.
Okay.
So
Okay.
whatever happens, I will plant 50% native.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
At least.
Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh no.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering about 37 Walker, if there's been any movement on that, or what the next steps are for that.
We're in discussions with the mayor to make a final decision. So I don't know when the decision will be made. Chris, you're muted. I think you were talking.
Should just let me run. It'll be quieter. 37 Walker is the large, well-loved tree that's impinging on a foundation.
Yes, we had a tree hearing for it a few weeks ago.
Yep. Right. And then I guess the next step is the permits and exceptions.
Malik, you here?
Yep. I did not update the sheet yet, but I do have permits and exemptions to list off. So in terms of permits, we are up to, I believe, 15 would be the number, and permit applications, there's been 18 permit applications for the year. What I got pending is Stop and Shop wants to remove some trees over on McGrath, so they may have to go through some mitigation or some tree replantings. There's that. And then the other two, which is 16 Highland Road and then 29 Alpine Street, are likely to be waivers. Moving on to exemptions, 80 Benton Road had storm damage. So that's definitely going to be an exemption as there was a large Norway maple that failed on their neighbor's property. 22 Madison is a decayed cherry tree. This is his second exemption. And then 57 School Street would be a hazard, and 7 Evergreen Square is a 10-inch sycamore maple that is quite precarious and decayed. So 18 Central Street would be a very large Norway maple tree that that is hazardous. Let's see, anything else? And this list will be up to date before our next meeting. So that is all I have to report. Any questions?
Hearing no questions, thank you for that.
Oh, no problem.
It's really good to just feel like we have a pulse on what's going on with removals on both public and private land. That's increasingly normal to just sort of know what's up, and I'm glad we do it. So thank you for that. All right, returning to the regular order of business then, unless there's more from the city. All right, so next up is item 7, Native Species Annuals Pilot Program.
Okay, so I put this on the list because I noticed that the contract has gone out for our hanging baskets that are in the squares and different plantings that are in the ground and also in planters. And the directive is, you know, petunias, geraniums, pansies, then mums, and again, this sort of decorative but very little value to our ecosystem, and it's an unsustainable way of planting because they plant and then they remove and the baskets get planted and then they get changed over from the geraniums to the mums. And I am interested in investigating a pilot program which we would choose one of the squares to start making the baskets be native plants, and that would include whatever hanging baskets that there might be, whatever is planted in tree pits, or what is planted in the whiskey barrels, or what is intended to be planted in whatever is usually intended for the pansies, geraniums, and mums, to actually just starting to have a pilot where we just put in native plants, of course, to, you know, to start creating pollinator corridors, which is the intention of this administration, to start really buckling down and figuring out how we really commit to using indigenous plant species, so we get our bugs back. So so this is more of just like, I wanted to get this on the agenda because I'd like to start investigating the possibility of doing it this year. So it would involve, I imagine, meeting with PSAF, figuring out funding, and just trying to get it for this year.
I have a technical question, and it might be Vanessa. Are the hanging baskets and whiskey barrel planters PSAF, or are those DPW?
DPW.
Right, so we need to first ask the right group.
Right.
And then the second question would be, are those mentioned or not in the native planting ordinance? Given that they're not planted, they're hung.
They are mentioned as annual plantings, which are exempt from the native planting ordinance. They're mentioned in the ordinance, so I guess they're not exempt in the ordinance, but they are exempt from planting native species.
Okay.
Which is something we still need to fix. I gotta, in our ongoing attempts.
We have Breck here from DPW, although that would not be your exact department. Is this something we could ask you to find us the right person and potentially invite them to one of our meetings or carry forward a message?
It's definitely out of my wheelhouse, but I would say Ben Waldrop is probably the right person. So we could try to get him back here for another meeting at some point.
Or we could probably go ahead, Vanessa, sorry.
Just to be thinking about this as well, all plants are important for the ecosystem, but technically our purview as the Urban Forestry Committee is over trees and shrubs in the public right-of-way, not annual planting. So this technically isn't part of the UFC purview and may not be the best use of our efforts. I also did want to mention that PSAF is working on starting to think about a pollinator action plan, which is also being led by the mayor and her efforts. And I think that this sort of these types of plantings will be explored in the pollinator action plan, and as part of that, it'll be trying to figure out the best ways to make the best habitat for pollinators in our community. So I think you know, maybe this is best to hold off to a future date when we know what interventions will make the most effect on pollinators.
Great to know that there's a pollinator action plan, and I would definitely support like us writing a letter in support of it to encourage action, even if it's outside of our purview, because more pollinators obviously will help our trees and shrubs. And if there's already a group thinking about it, anything we can do to support them and back them, I think would be a great way to use our enthusiasm. And
even though this might not be in our purview, it does not mean we can't do it or suggest it or influence it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we don't want this to be part of the Urban Forestry Committee, I will take it upon myself to move forward on this out of the Urban Forestry Committee, but I would much prefer to have some support here and engagement of people. I mean, I personally would want to meet with Ben like before our next meeting to actually do some investigation. Like, is it possible? What if we had funding from, let's say, a developer who wants to investigate doing this? Like, I just think this could be a moment of opportunity, and the hanging baskets and their are really have been troubling for me when I see them, because they're pretty, but they're not doing what our native plants would be doing. So.
Yeah, I think we have taken some action on things that aren't specifically trees, like we made the signs with the, you know, the maintenance signs for that Jennifer kind of got through, that for, I forget what they said exactly, leaving the leaves and things like that. So we have in the past dipped our toes into other areas. So I don't think it would be completely out of range for us to make a statement suggesting this, or, you know, supporting it, or whatever makes the most sense once we find out from DPW what is feasible.
Yeah, it's on the agenda and we're talking about it. So fear not. If we were far enough afield that it was actually inappropriate to have it in the committee, we wouldn't have it on the agenda. So it's legitimate to talk. I think the guidance is we do want to stay somewhat in our lane as we put in a bunch of effort. But yeah, I would say I would be totally comfortable reaching out to Tori, reaching out to Ben Walker, and getting some facts, figuring out where that planning process is, and then I would be totally comfortable as well saying there are plants that exist in our city. You know, if there's something to be said, going ahead and saying it. I think if we found ourselves spending all of our time on it to the exclusion of our actual mandate, that would worry me. But in terms of like getting information, bringing it back, and advising the city about where we might be able to make an impact without too much additional effort, I think that's totally appropriate.
Shall I see, as I move forward, does anyone wish to be included on this? Can I CC you, Chris, or Amy? Or okay, well, if anyone would like to be involved in this, I will. Let me know.
Anybody else want to be in? Careful, we're making a working group. Amy wants to be in.
Okay. All right, Amy, me and Chris.
I'm fully supporting you in it, but personally maxed out.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. And then number 8 is high school landscaping.
Okay, I can be quick on this. I just, for the first time, kind of like investigated the high school and walked around, and you know, it's just lots of turf grass with bits of trees, and the actual planting in the beds are a lot of, again, non-native salvias and cotoneasters, which I was really surprised to see, because if you put in a cotoneaster, just make that a potentilla or a bush honeysuckle. Like, don't understand. After all the feedback I have given personally to the high school project, and that we gave from the Urban Forestry Committee, the amount of ginkgo bilobas that are in there is just like, oh my God, why are we putting ginkgo bilobas in a place that we could be putting in native plants, and we could be incorporating a wonderful native plant pollinator garden into the curriculum at the high school? Like, again, it's like feeling like going to meetings and giving feedback. And, you know, I was talking with the consultant and giving her books and like, here's ideas and you can do it and it's going to be great. And we end up with just like really underwhelming landscaping that's full of non-native plants. And I'm just like, why? Like, it's really hard to spend time going to meetings and giving feedback and having it be ignored. And so that's why we write things like the native planting ordinance, because it's just like, why? And so I'm so distressed about it. I've talked with Tatiana about it. She's on board with giving it another look. This is not something that is over and done. Again, I plan on I've already started looking into places where we can perhaps, you know, add in some pollinator gardens. I would gladly work with Peace Up and going through the proper channels. It is such a missed opportunity that it totally breaks my heart. And the amount of turf grass, I know there's no sense of place, and it just breaks my heart. Totally breaks my heart. So I hope to work with Peace Up, and especially the mayor, because she's behind me on this and behind us on this if we want to make this a thing. So that's that.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
I just want to state this was not a Peace Up project, so don't blame us. Yeah, not super excited about what they did with the trees. I don't know shrubs as well, but I don't know what Peace Up can do at this point, but you can reach out. This was capital projects with some input that was also ignored from Peace Up, so not our fault, sorry.
I'm glad you're feeling the pain.
Well, and it's especially disappointing to hear I remember they came to see us and we sat down. It was when we were still in person, and we went through that whole plan and we had a lot of discussion about that. I know we talked about mixed plantings, you know, and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, this is disappointing to hear. I'm sorry to hear it. And so who is the, I don't remember who did give that presentation. Can you please remind me of that? Like who would be the
SMMA is the firm that did the landscaping. I don't remember the name of the person.
Okay,
Louisa gave the presentation, if I recall correctly.
Oh, yeah, I just don't remember. Okay.
We probably captured it in the minutes. It's one of the things we do. I don't have them all to hand.
Yeah, and I think it was under Central Hill, like something, I think it was called the Central Hill, whatever, plan or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't high school necessarily, but I think that was what it was labeled. So I may go back and take a look at that. Thanks.
I think it was also, I think, related to they had to do a few more tree removals than they had originally thought. So this wasn't, I remember it being like some changes that they were proposing to make because of the tree removals, but most of the plan had already been made at that point, I believe.
Yeah, so I'm interested, maybe we could do a little back channel and pick an approach where one approach would be to say we start from where we are and we see what can be changed, right? See if Peace Up can get any little patch of dirt where you take a different path. And another path might be to actually to try to understand where our feedback went and invite that person back and say, well, here were the recommendations we made and here's what happened. Could you explain how that works so we could be more effective in the future, in similar situations? That second approach could turn adversarial, and I don't know if that would be terribly useful, but it could be satisfying to say, hey, what happened? I'm open to either. I'll admit I'm tending to err on the side of going forward from where we are and seeing if we can get something more useful than a ginkgo planted.
I'll just give one nugget of perspective, being in a design firm and a lot of times having the opportunity to select entirely native palettes, but sometimes being limited by stickler old principals who are going to plant the things they've been planting for years, and regardless of how many times you give them new ideas and new perspective and try and turn things, it's like, yeah, it can be really, really frustrating. But I think the idea is about moving forward, and I don't know, I'd love to see how we can wield more power, wield more influence, become influencers, as I think someone said in the chat earlier. And I think doing it through everything that we've been talking about, because it's also a challenge with nurseries and finding, when you have a totally native palette and then you go to the nursery and they can't provide and they want, it has to happen today, it's always on a deadline. But I think, yeah, everything we're doing, just keep doing it. And eventually once it's more done and understood and almost proven. And yeah, I think a big thing is finding precedence. So, sharing projects that have been doing really good native planting, is a great way forward. But yeah, I'd love to continue brainstorming about how we provide resources to designers, and how we break some people who are really stuck in their ways. Not break them, present them other options that can be equally reliable, and provide the results that they're looking for. And I think focusing on that is a great way to do it, and talk about, the vision and what we're trying to achieve together. But yeah, I feel for you and for possibly the designers involved.
Right. So we are at the 2-hour point. I know some folks have commitments after this. Are there any updates that are absolutely essential for item 10 here on outreach, species selection, and tree preservation ordinance?
I think the pilot project would be good, or Vanessa mentioned that the money got approved. So that is something I would love to hear about today, as we are hoping to plant before our next meeting. So whatever we need to talk about as a group we can do, we can also just follow up offline.
I actually have to go get my kids, so I can't do much talking, but sorry, but I can do listening.
Okay.
Can we follow up offline?
I think so. There's nothing that needs to be voted on or approved, or I think it's just a matter of the money has been approved, so we can buy the plants and we can put them in the ground, and that's super exciting. We'll need volunteers to help us do this. So I think it'll be Connor, Tori, myself, and if anyone's super excited, we've held the weekend of June 2nd, I believe, but that'll be pending our plant arrivals. So if anyone's super excited, speak up now. Otherwise, we will send follow-up emails.
I just want to say congratulations. That was a long time coming, and we've got a pilot program where plants are going in dirt. Good work, everybody.
Super exciting.
Lots of little steps all in the right direction. All right, so the last bit is to approve the wonderful minutes that Connor did. Did anybody not have a chance to review them? All right, so let us do a quick roll call on approving minutes. Amy Myrtle.
I guess I'll abstain because I wasn't actually at that meeting, so I can't review them for accuracy.
All right, Breck Miller.
I approve.
All right, I approve. Jennifer Clifford.
Approve.
Leah Grossman.
Approve.
Malik is not actually Malik, you might be our voting person since Vanessa Bikili left.
All right, approved.
Cool, and then Tori with the tiebreaker here. All right, approved by a whisker. That is what we had for an agenda. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? You are on mute again, Tori.
I want to make a motion on another item.
Oh, go ahead.
So motions can be brought up at any time, I do believe.
Mhm.
And this motion would be going forward, moving the updates from the city closer to the top, even after resident concerns, because they're really important. And I know our staff, you know, hopefully they've been able to do some double tasking. But I think it would be important to get them done earlier on.
Okay, do you want us to vote on that?
Yes, like I said.
All right. Is there any discussion on that? All right, there's a motion that we move updates from the city up immediately after resident concerns on every agenda. So same list, Amy Myrtle.
Sure.
All right, Breck Miller.
Sounds good to me.
I think it's a great idea. Jennifer Clifford.
I approve that.
All right, Leah Grossman.
Approve.
Malik Drayton.
Approved.
All right, and Tori.
Yes, approved.
All right, so that is what we
I'm
will
still
do.
here too, Chris. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that,
I'll
Connor.
approve that too. No, you're
right.
good. I'm probably not showing up because I'm calling in. So.
Yeah, I suspect it's a privacy thing where it doesn't want to show phone numbers.
That's fair. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll look into that.
All right, we will be doing that going forward. That's a good thought. Thank you, Tori. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve or to adjourn.
Second.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for a really productive meeting, everybody. Thank you for staying a couple minutes late. It is always good to see you. And we will talk in a month, if not before. Be well, everybody.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.